Hello, everyone, and welcome to Full Time, where we take you around the world of soccer, locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally. Full Time is presented by the Game Sports Podcast and powered by 91 Network. You're listening to Season 4, Episode 22 of Full Time. I'm your host, Daniel Scarpino, and with me is our co-host, Gitano Gallo. Before we begin today's show, Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. With their 2 locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, you can download and access the Pizza Portal app so you can enjoy a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. We remind our listeners that recordings of Full Time occur weekly or bi-weekly, and uploads to all of our platforms for public viewing and listening occur weekly or bi-weekly as well. Folks, it is an absolute pleasure to bring you this episode of Full Time, where we get to talk about the beautiful game. G, how are you, my friend?
Doing good, Scarps. Got some good weather, got some good work done today, and get to end the day talking the beautiful game with you. Perfect day. How are you doing?
I'm in the exact same position as you. Been outside getting stuff done all day and celebrated a nice birthday today. Not mine, of course, but yeah, no, it's been a great weekend, and glad to cap off the day here with you as well. In today's show, we will analyze the results of the Champions League final, the Conference League final, and we will officially wrap up Europe's Big Five for the season. And of course, we will talk a little bit of local and regional soccer. As always, if anyone would like to listen to our previous content, please check us out at Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. And without further ado, Gaetano, and to everyone who has taken the time to tune in here today, let's kick off. We get the ball rolling with the Champions League final. In the Champions League final contested between Dortmund and Real Madrid, we were all set up for what we would hope would be a classic. That said, it was Real Madrid who turned up when it mattered most in the second half, scoring 2 goals in the space of 9 minutes to close the game out and win it by a score of 2-0. For a 15th time, Real Madrid are Champions League winners. Gitano, we wanted for the Marco Reus story to be written for him and for Dortmund, but it wasn't to be. Real Madrid do it again. Your analysis of the game, my friend.
Yeah, I think, first of all, I want to start by saying, not the greatest game of football at all. Not at all what I expected in terms of quality. Dortmund actually had a really solid first half, created a lot of chances. I feel like they had more expected goals. I think it was 1.68, 1.69 in that first half than Bayern Munich created their entire 2-leg tie. Dortmund played really, really well. Real Madrid were lucky to be scoreless going to the half, but this kind of is tied into this Real Madrid kind of aura for the last couple of years, where if you don't kill them, they will win games. You almost have to quite literally kill them to beat them. Dortmund just didn't take their chances, and then all you need is that a nice set piece. Danny Carvajal, kind of surprising for a Champions League goal score off a corner, but puts in the back of the net, and Vinicius Jr. to seal it a couple minutes later. Again, not a great Real Madrid performance, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. They are the 15-time European champions.
It's incredible. And, I take a look back and I watched the game in full. The first 63 minutes, I actually felt that Dortmund were comfortable. And they had, one good chance for sure in the first half, if not 2. And I thought to myself, those are probably the moments that you have to take advantage of if you're going to beat a side like Real Madrid, because you know that as long as Real Madrid can hang on, they will find a way. And they did just that. They capitalized on the corner kick, to your point, and then they punish a really poor turnover at the end with an extra pass to the third man, and Vinicius Jr. goes through and scores a really nice goal. So it was one of those things that I thought to myself, if you're Dortmund, you have to take those chances. Do you think that that's ultimately where they let themselves down?
Yeah, I really do. I think they could have been up at least 2-0 going into halftime. I think it's a totally different game. I think the manager makes totally different subs at that point. I think you're putting, at that point, a lot of pressure on Ancelotti to kind of make a difference-making sub. Instead, they just kind of played into Real Madrid's hand by just not converting, giving them that lifeline, keeping them in the game. And then, like we said, all they need is that one chance, and they took it.
Exactly. And I want to say it was a game of 2 halves. I mean, I want to say that. Was it really? Probably not. Like, to your point, I think you hit it spot on. It wasn't actually a great game of football. The first 45 minutes, I wasn't on the edge of my seat. I wasn't, super delighted with what I was seeing. But, in the second half, you got to give credit to Dortmund's goalkeeper. He did come up with some really impressive saves, and he was keeping the minute. But it almost looked like on Dortmund's counterattacks that they had nothing. They did have a goal that they scored late on in the match, which was ruled out for a pretty clear offside, in my opinion, but it just wasn't happening for them. Do you think, a team like Real Madrid, and there's so few teams like that in the world of football, but you said it before too, they just know how to win this competition. What do you think it is that really gets them over the line in these types of games?
It's weird. I think, especially this kind of group now, the last few years under Ancelotti, and this is no disrespect to him at all, one of the most decorated managers in world football, but he's not like a master tactician. He's not like, super innovative. He's just a phenomenal man manager. Like, he knows exactly what to say to the guys to get, the optimal result from them, puts his best 11 out and just kind of lets them play their football. And I think he has instilled that confidence in them that it doesn't matter who they're playing, what the conditions are, whether they're up 3 goals, down 3 goals. They're Real Madrid. They can do whatever they want. They can win. And these players are like fully drinking the Kool-Aid on it. They believe that they can do whatever they want. And for the last 3 years, they basically have.
Exactly. And a couple of things that were coming out of that, to your point about Ancelotti, he said the biggest thing in our team, and I mean, probably people would disagree with this. He says that we have no ego. He said, us here at Real Madrid, we have no ego. So we just go out and we play, and that's that. But you almost have to have a bit of arrogance to yourself to know that, hey, we are Real Madrid. This is what we do. We win this competition, and we are what we are because we've done what we've done, and vice versa. But to think that, what was it, 3-4 years ago, he was managing Everton.
Three.
Like that to me is, it's like unfathomable,
I saw a funny tweet earlier today. It was a picture of Ancelotti in his like Everton training gear. And they're like, hey, 3 years ago, Ancelotti was, coach at Everton. He's now won 2 Champions Leagues, a couple domestic cups as well, and the league. Everton are, fighting for relegation, like barely surviving, and their actual jersey sponsor, Kazoo, are completely out of business. That's how like quickly 3 years changed things.
Yeah, and time is a strange thing, but one thing that Real Madrid could say is that with time, they stay just about as good, because for a 15th time running, they are Champions League winners. The Conference League final play between Olympiacos and Fiorentina had some big implications on the line as well. In that final, after 90 minutes, nothing could separate the two sides as the score remained 0-0 and needing extra time. It ended up being a late bitter end goal for Olympiacos as they popped up in the 116th minute to find the match winner and thus defeat Fiorentina by a score of 1-0. Olympiacos are Conference League champions. This one was a tough battle between two sides, and that pretty much, I would say, for sure gave everything that they had, and it came down to extra time. The scenes, I do have to say, in Olympiacos afterwards were absolutely insane. But I definitely want to know your thoughts on this game, sir.
Yes, I want to start with the scenes, because winning a major, your club's and actually your country's first major European trophy in your rival's stadium, unbelievable. That has to be the most unbelievable feeling ever. Like, that is, storybook doesn't like cover that. That is just, there's no way for like AEK Athens to ever kind of get that bragging rights back or like pull even. Like, you can't top that. It was the first time for a Greek club to win a European trophy like that. So yeah, the scenes were justifiably mental, and also like we just know how the Greek fans are in general. They could be playing like a preseason game, and they're going to have the crazy ultras and the pyro, and so just European final, winning it in your biggest rival stadium. Some of the best scenes you're ever going to see. The game was, I thought, phenomenal. It was kind of, again, it wasn't like beautiful, but it was a little more tactical of a battle than I think the Champions League final. A little more back and forth, and yeah, that the finish in extra time, that was something else. We talked about Lookman in the Europa League final, like scoring 3 beautiful goals. Like, I don't know, other than the Champions League final, like Conference League and Europa League got 3 or 4 like phenomenal quality goals. I thought it was probably the most entertaining of the three major European finals this year for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you on that too. And I love the nature of the game, that it was like, to your point, going back and forth. It was a case of, okay, we're going to have a go. Okay, now let's trade another punch. You have a go at us. And just that sort of, and I wouldn't say that the game was completely and totally open, because there definitely was a tactical element to it. But I love the fact that both teams had a proper go at it. And we got to witness an extra 30 minutes of football on top of it, which was awesome. So, yeah, I mean, as I said, there's implications that are on the line now. But obviously, Olympiacos now will go to the Europa League next year, but Fiorentina, they still get to go to the Conference League next year. So do you think for both of these teams now going into next season, do you think that they'll have both a bit of confidence going into their next competition in the following season?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think Fiorentina had a phenomenal tournament this year. Did really well, obviously, falling short at the last hurdle. And kind of as long as they don't, entirely sell the squad and, rip it all the way down to the framework, like, they should have confidence that they can make a good run at this again next year.
Absolutely. And we were treated between the Champions League, the Europa League, and of course the Conference League to three excellent, for the most part, excellent finals. And we now have our European winners, and congratulations to all of those teams, of course. And it's been a joy here to cover all of them on Full Time. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you're listening to Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. You can download and access the Pizza Portal app for any of the two locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Have a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars today. Gee, let's finalize Europe's Big Five with a discussion about the one league that we have left to wrap up now that it is all said and done, and that is Serie A in Italy. There are eight teams who will be competing in European football next year coming out of Italy's top division. Inter, Milan, Juventus, Atalanta, and Bologna will all play in the Champions League. Roma and Lazio will play in the Europa League. And as we just mentioned, it will be Fiorentina who will play in the Conference League. Gee, it was Italy that was absolutely competitive this year, and it was great to see that. And all of the teams did really well in their European competitions as well. So what can you say for Serie A this season?
Yeah, I think this is a pretty significant year for Serie A, kind of ascending back to where it should be in terms of kind of the European stage. Italian clubs haven't had a lot of luck in Europe these last few years. They've looked actually quite terrible, other than kind of the last year and a half, 2 years. So yeah, I think it's kind of a great moment for them to have so many quality teams, and not that's the thing. You could have 10 teams in Europe, but if they're I'm not going to take a shot at France here, but 10 Liga teams in Europe versus 10 Serie A teams in Europe, it's a huge difference in quality. So I think it's massive for the league to kind of get that exposure, get those teams playing in Europe, hopefully get a little more money into the league, and kind of return it to its rightful place.
Yeah, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, that sort of competitive element. It's obviously different to something like Ligue 1, where players are now going to look at Serie A and think to themselves, I want to go play there. I want to go compete, and I want to have a proper chance to go and play in a European competition, because essentially almost half of the league next year is going to be able to compete in Europe. So yeah, Italy Serie A had a fantastic season, and it was great to witness even some of the sort of the lower table games. And I know it sounds a bit rude, but they were super competitive, and I enjoyed watching them as well. So kudos to Serie A for giving us a good competitive edge to watch on our screens, and we'll definitely be keeping an eye out for next season, because I anticipate that it will improve once again. And it is now time for a local and regional soccer update. In our last episode of Full Time, we said that we'd be able to highlight all 4 city champions coming out of the city of Sault Ste. Marie at high school soccer level, and we can do that now. In the junior boys division, it is the Cora Colts who are city champions. In the senior boys division, it is the St. Mary's Knights who are city champions. In the junior girls division, as highlighted on our last show, it is the Cora Colts who are city champions. And in the senior girls division, it is the St. Mary's Knights who are city champions. Gee, it was a really competitive high school soccer season across all 4 divisions this year between the 4 schools that we have here in the Soo. How important is it that we have this level of competitiveness for our local soccer product here in the Soo?
I think it's huge. If we were just talking about, kind of the difference between the competitiveness in Serie A and Liga, it's great to play, a level of soccer, but it's just so much better, especially for these kids still developing, to be actually playing competitive games against competitive teams, kind of pushing each other to their limits to really kind of push the sport in the city. I think it's phenomenal to get that kind of competition.
For sure. And for the 2.5, 3 months, more so 3 months, but that these kids get to play soccer, the fact that everyone can compete and everyone had a proper chance, I think is just the signs that things are really up and well with high school soccer here in the Sioux. So that was great to see this season. And in the senior ranks specifically, schools in the Sioux had the opportunity this past week, based on their performance at local level, to go and compete in the regional competition of NASA, held throughout Northern Ontario. For those that don't know, NASA, which stands for Northern Ontario Secondary Schools Athletics, is the regional competition for senior divisions to qualify for provincial championships here in Ontario, Canada. In senior boys, it was St. Mary's, Superior Heights, and White Pines who had their opportunity to compete for a chance to qualify for the prestigious OFSA provincial competition. OFSA stands for Ontario Federation of School Athletic Associations, and it is the province's highest level of competition here in Ontario for youth competitive athletes. St. Mary's reached the NASA final, but came up just short, losing by a score of 2-1 in the final. That said, they still qualify for OFSA with a chance to compete for a provincial title. Gee, how exciting, despite the fact that they lost in the regional final, how exciting is it for these young men that they get to still go and compete for a provincial title?
Yeah, it's absolutely huge. This is the highest level that they can achieve in that age group. So yeah, it's absolutely massive that that these kids are going to get that chance. Hopefully, a chance to get a little bit of revenge, we'll call it, for losing in the NASA final. But yeah, I think it's just like we were talking about, like getting the chance to play, the best in the city, the best in the region, and then now, the best in the entire province. Just kind of indescribable how much that's going to benefit these kids in the future.
Yeah, not to mention it'll be memories that they have for a lifetime, but they've got something on the line here that they can really go and compete for. And we certainly wish all those young men and their coaching staff nothing but the best as they go into that competition in just a few days' time. And in senior girls, it was St. Mary's, Cora, and White Pines who also had the opportunity to compete for a chance to qualify for OFSA. St. Mary's and Cora, who met up in the city final locally here in Sault Ste. Marie, also met up in the NASA final. The city final here in the Sioux ended in favor of St. Mary's, defeating Cora by a score of 3-2. And in the NASA final, it was St. Mary's who were victorious, once again defeating Cora by a score of 3-0. Gee, both of these teams, St. Mary's and Cora, will get to attend OFSA and represent Sault Ste. Marie as they both made the regional final. What does this say for the female side of soccer here in the Sioux?
Yeah, I mean, obviously having like one representative at OFSA is a fantastic, result. But to have the finalists for our city, also the finalists for NASA, now also going to OFSA to compete, it just really says how much quality there is in the women's game here in the Sioux, especially at that level. It's absolutely massive. I can't imagine like this happened like many other times in the region where it's the same two teams going all the way through. Hopefully, St. Mary's can kind of keep the trick going and get the third one as next St. Mary's night. That would be awesome to see. But honestly, for either of those teams to go and win at OFSA would be huge for the city.
Yeah, and just the same that we said for St. Mary's senior boys, we wish St. Mary's senior girls and, of course, Cora's girls and all of their coaching staffs nothing but the best, because they'll have the opportunity to go and compete and, like you said, try and bring something back to the Sioux. But the fact that we have two representatives going to OFSA based on the fact that both of them made it to the NASA final, I think it speaks volumes to Sault Ste. Marie's female soccer at high school level. So kudos to everybody involved for sure. OFSA soccer will take place from June 6th to June 8th throughout various regions of Ontario. Every single game can be accessed through the OFSA website on their live stream at www.ofsa.on.ca. That's www.ofsaa.on.ca. You can also access all games via the OFSA YouTube page for 3 days straight. So, we'll have lots of viewing that we can do here regionally for our high school athletes, especially our teams in the Sioux. And Gitano, there are 3 tiers of OFSA, and for anybody who doesn't know, there are 3 tiers of OFSA soccer. One being single A, which we don't have any teams in the Sioux who qualified for. White Pines had that opportunity, but they fell just short. We will have St. Mary's Senior Girls, however, who will play at AA OFSA, and we will have both St. Mary's Senior Boys and Cora Senior Girls playing at AAA OFSA. And I guess if you wanted to compare it to anything, you could say Conference League, Europa League, Champions League type of deal. But regardless, how big is this, Gitano, for these players to experience the highest level of competition in the province? And by way of comparison, because we know how, the OUA is and the OCAA is for the players that do end up playing there, this ends up being some of the highest level of competition, not just in the province, but in Canada in general.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. There's not a lot of gaps, or sorry, there's quite a few like gaps between like the divisions, kind of not professionally, but for high quality soccer, like outside of OFSA and that, like the next step really is, playing at OUA. Like there's no like kind of like gradual grow up there. It's straight to OUA, and then outside of the OUA, you go, if someone graduates there, like it's the CPL now. Like there's no like kind of middle steps. It's these massive leaps. So for these kids, at such a young age, to be kind of playing basically on like the fourth tier, of soccer in Canada, really, if you would say MLS, because we have a couple of Canadian teams would be the top, like that's absolutely massive, And when you think like of other sports, like 4 steps away from the NHL is still like the ECHL. Like that's not an achievable goal for someone like in high school at all. So this is absolutely huge for these kids. A chance to really show that the talent they have, showcase that, and again for the Sioux to kind of showcase that, hey, like as small as we are and kind of in the middle of nowhere as we are, like we can produce phenomenal talent.
Absolutely, and the fact that these kids and their coaches and the schools get to be represented at this competition. I myself got to play at OFSA soccer, and the spectacle in and of itself is indescribable. So I can only say, if anyone's going to take any advice from someone like me, it might not mean anything, but definitely just enjoy it and take it all in, and of course do your best. But we're very thankful and lucky that we get to have some of our schools go and represent us here at provincial championships, because by no means is it a guarantee. So kudos to the 3 teams that will be going and representing the Sioux. In our next episode of Full Time, we'll be able to highlight all of the outcomes of our local teams who will compete at provincial championships this upcoming week. This is Daniel Scarpino and Gitano Gallo, and you're listening to Full Time on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. A reminder that Full Time is sponsored by Little Caesars Pizza. You can download and access the Pizza Portal app for any of the 2 locations in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. Have a delicious hot and ready pizza from Little Caesars. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Full Time. As we bring today's show to a close, we want to thank each of you for spending some time with us to talk about sport that connects us all. G, well done this evening, my friend.
Yeah, same to you, Scarps. Perfect way to cap off a weekend.
Absolutely, and we'll get to see each other this Thursday, because I believe we are playing against one in local soccer, so that'll be awesome.
Awesome's maybe a little bit of a stretch for it. You guys are, you guys are the Real Madrid of our league, and we are very much, as much as we are looking forward to playing you, it's less about the game, more about the social interaction. We'll call it the best one.
But this way, it'll be great to see you. And
exactly.
That for sure. A reminder to our listeners that the next episode of Full Time will be recorded the week of June 10th, 2024. In that show, we will preview UEFA Euro 2024, the Copa America, and we will have a look at local and regional soccer one last time for high school level. As always, we'll keep everyone in the loop with all of the happenings in the world of football. For weekly content, make sure to hit like, follow, and subscribe to all platforms, both the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network, on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Podbean. For Gitano Gallo, my name is Daniel Scarpino, and thank you for tuning in to Full Time. We look forward to seeing you at kickoff next time back here on the Game Sports Podcast and 91 Network. Best always.